Hari Om. Today we are on the mantra 11, the last mantra, section 2 of chapter 3 of Mundaka. And I read the mantra now. Tadedat satyam Rishi Angira Purovacha Naidadajirna Avrdo Dhite Namah Paramarishibhyo Namah Paramarishibhyo. Now we read the Bhashyam meaning. Rishi Angiras taught in ancient times to his disciple that and this is truth. None who has not observed any vow or renunciation is fit to study this science. Prostrations to the sages, prostration to the sages. Now we'll try and examine the meaning in a little more detailed manner. It starts with saying Tadedat Satyam. Tadedat Satyam means this and that is the truth, or that and this is the truth. Tad, etat, that and this is the truth. Now, how can truth be that and this? It can't be both. Then it is not truth. It can only be one. Then what is the confusion here? This tadedat, this and that phrase is very common in Upanishadic literature. And this is a very special, peculiar usage in this branch of study. In fact, it synthesis that and this to be one. That is the purpose. And this is deliberately employed to avoid any confusion in the minds of the seeker, a situation which is very peculiar in Vedanta studies alone. Let me explain, please. Generally, a disciple reaches the teacher for the final study of Vedanta after leading a life of material pleasures, but feels thoroughly dissatisfied as he finds that the pleasure he obtains from all such material pleasures are indeed good, enjoyable, but they are not permanent. Isn't it? A cup of steaming hot coffee on a winter morning. You are with your blanket sitting in an armchair. You get a cup of very strong and sort of a hot steaming Madras coffee. Take one sip. What is your feeling? A wow feeling, isn't it? Wow! Truly enjoyable. You can't measure that enjoyment. But how long? It is not permanent. That joy that you get from the sip of coffee is no doubt enjoyable, but it is not permanent. Nor can you get the same happiness with every sip of coffee. Then we could have spent our life in sipping coffee. But the second sip doesn't give you that unit of happiness which the first sip gave you. Simple law of diminishing utility. Isn't it? So everything, dukkhalayam ashashvatam, all happiness, pleasure arising out of material objects ultimately lead to sorrow or unhappiness. But human mind yearns for happiness, not fragmented or fractional, but unbroken and full. Therefore, realizing the futility of the material world, he renounces his material pleasures reaches a guru and cries before him, "Sir, can I not live a life of absolute happiness which is infinite and complete? Can I not get it? How to get it? What should I do? Where should I go?" The teacher does not answer that question immediately. He says, "Yes, I'll answer. But now you finish your admission process, complete all that formalities, and have an orientation course, and then come." So after a few preliminary classes, and after the boy gets himself acclimatized to the ashram life, helping the Guru Patni for her household work, carrying firewood sticks, looking after the children whenever they turn out to be mischievous, Guru's children, respecting the Guru Patni, helping her in cooking, serving the master. This type of ashram life he leads, plus regular studies of Vedanta. And after a few preliminary classes, coupled with this practical experience, the teacher finds that this is the right time to answer this boy's question. Just to create some interest in him, I must answer that question. And the student is given the answer, and the Rishi tells the student, "Tattvamasi," one sentence, and explains to him what it means. Meaning, my dear boy, that which you are seeking is indeed you, your own nature. Tat Tvam Asi. That which you are seeking is you only. You have only to realize that nature within. Now, at that point in time, there is a that factor in the mind of the student. Tattvamasi. That is you. So there is a that factor at the moment. And there is indeed a gap or distance between that which is to be realized, the experienced, and this who is required to realize, the experiencer. So there is an experiencer and there is an experienced, that which is to be experienced, Gaya. Though there is a that, there is a this. This has to experience that. There is a distance between the two. However, as a result of further teachings on this concept and the life at the Gurukulam for a fairly long period, the student has come to feel that the distance between that reality and this me has drastically reduced. I'm trying to understand that more and more. I think I'm going near it more and more because I am disassociating myself with many things which I thought I am. So the true nature of me, I am trying to discover. Therefore, I am going nearer and nearer to the goal. And now, there is only a small, thin layer of dividing factor between the two. And ere long, even that distance will be zero when this will merge into that. Now, the fact of the matter is that please come with me. I find extremely difficult to get the words to explain to you. So I'm trying my best. The that and the this is still not the same for the student. They are two different things. Distance may be very, very close, maybe 1 centimeter. It was 4 kilometers when I came for the class, but now it is reduced to 1 centimeter. Covering that centimeter will take more than what I have taken to cover 10 kilometers. They are still not the same, theoretically. And they are at 2 points, even if it is so close. Therefore, in order to avoid any trace or iota of confusion in the minds of the taught, and as a measure of abundant caution, the Shruti declares to the student that and this is the truth. Don't ever mistake that is different and this is different. No. Tadedat satyam. This and that both are the truth. Because ultimately one will merge with the other. Therefore, this declaration. Able to get it? Now, the parting advice to the student by the teacher is that none who has not observed any vow or renunciation is fit to be a student for the study of Vedanta. He is repeating this. Why should he repeat this? The student has come and got admitted after all these qualifications have been met. The different chapters of the text is taken only after the Guru is satisfied that is a fit student to be taught with Brahma Vidya. And therefore, why is he telling him again? A student is in the 10th standard. When he has written the examination of the 10th standard, or he is about to write the examination of the 10th standard, why should he call him and say, look here, those who have not passed 9th standard cannot come to 10th standard. Those who have not passed 8th standard cannot come to 9th standard. So those who have not passed those standards cannot come here. Why should he tell me this? He is already passed. The point is, the teacher has enormous faith and confidence in the grit of his student Shaunaka by virtue of his contact with him, observing him doing the household work of the ashram, the dedication that he is expressing in his work, the detached way in which he is behaving in different situations, and also the intellectual capacity of the student to grasp the esoteric themes, what is discussed in Vedanta. The Guru is sure that this Shaunaka, the disciple, will surely be elevated to a status of a Guru one day, if not very long. Before long, here is a student who will be elevated to the status of a Guru. At that point in time when he becomes a Guru, he is advised to refrain from entertaining students of raw culture without any observance of the required discipline for this specialized and glorious studies. Look at the methodology of teaching. Look at the relationship between teacher and the Guru. Look at the confidence that the teacher has on the Guru. In the old system of our education. All that is gone. Anyway, so now, along with Angiras now, the concluding portion, along with the Rishi Angiras, let us all offer our sincere and heartfelt prostrations to the saint and sages of yore. Because the Upanishad says, Namah Parama Rishibhyo, Namah Parama Rishibhya. Prostrations to the saints and sages of this country. Now the prostration is mentioned twice. Namah Parama Rishibhyo, Namah Parama Rishibhya. Why twice? The repetition of the prostration is both to indicate the great solicitude to the Guru's lineage and the fact that the Mundaka Upanishad is coming to an end. How does one know that the Mundaka Upanishad has come to an end? Now you know, because at the end of that page you will find end of Mundaka Upanishad. That is fine. But those days there were no printed textbooks. The words of the Guru were directly printed in the memory slabs of the student. And therefore you can't use any expressions like inverted commas or exclamation marks or emotes. Nothing of that sort can be done. So how do we know when there is a change of theme or when something has ended? The technique used is either they change the meter or they repeat what they have said. Seemingly appear to be repetition, but that repetition is for a purpose. Here the purpose of repetition is to indicate that the Mundaka Upanishad has ended, and immediately after ending of the Upanishads, the custom is that a Shantipad, a peace invocation is chanted, both in the beginning of the Upanishad as well as at the end of the Upanishads. In this Upanishad also, unfortunately, we did not have the occasion to go through the first mantras. Before that, the same peace invocation is chanted in the beginning of this Upanishad also. The same invocation is chanted at the end. So let us together chant that peace invocation of this Upanishad. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatra Stirai Angaistushtuva Gumsasthanubhi Vyashema Devahidam Yadayu Swastina Indro Vruddhashrava Swastina Pusha Vishwaveda Swastina Stakshyo Arishtanemi Swastina Brahaspadir Dadhatu Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamaduchyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Chinmayam Vyabhiyas Sarvam Trailokyam Sajarajaram Tatpadam Darshidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. May peace be with all of you. Hari Om, Hari Om. The meaning of Bhadram Karnebi is indicated in that script that you have got sent from Viji. So please go through. And with this, the Mundaka Upanishad concludes. And from tomorrow onwards, we will try and explain the meanings of each nama of Vishnu Sahasranama Stotra. A couple of days, maybe some introductions. It will be lecture class. Thereafter, it will be a class in the form of a class, the mode of a class, not of a lecture. We will see what the difference is and how it is to be heard and how it is to be spoken. We will discuss all that. So tomorrow we will start the Vishnu Sahasranama classes. Till then, Hari Om to all of you.